Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you the stories of people who are making the world a better place, locally, globally, and digitally. We're part of Rotary International, over 1 million people in 36,000 clubs all over the planet. The thing we're dedicated to is a little thing called service above self. And in the Rotary E Club of Silicon Valley, we love it when it's innovative and sustainable and fascinating that we can do that job of finding the joy and meaning that comes from helping others. Now, one of the most interesting places you might go to find how people can think creatively about how to help others is a high school. And as it turns out, our speaker today is a high school student who has done some really, really cool work that we are excited to share with you. Joining us from Nova Scotia is teen scientist Joy Akinkunmi. And Joy, we are so excited to have you with us. Welcome to the Rotary E Club of Silicon Valley.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So today I'm going to be sharing about my project, the PillSmart 2.0. So first I'd like to bring your attention to this fact right here, which is that non-adherence to medication is among the leading causes of morbidity, especially in elderly patients. And this is especially relevant to seniors with dementia. So, dementia is a neurodegenerative disease and it impacts tens of millions of seniors globally. And this number is actually expected to triple by 2050. Some of the common symptoms of dementia include confusion, poor memory, and paranoia. And although there are medications to alleviate some of these symptoms, it's often a challenge for seniors in this demographic to adhere to their medication due to their poor memory. So this is where the PillSmart comes in. The PillSmart is an automatic pill dispenser for seniors with mild and moderate dementia, completed with an app for a caregiver. It's designed with many adaptive features such as reminder settings and features for confirming proper dosages for this demographic. My inspiration for this project is my grandmother. After she was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia, I noticed her struggling to do simple tasks such as taking her medication. So I took on the responsibility of giving her medication multiple times throughout the day. Although between school and extracurriculars, it often became a challenge for me to remember to give her medication, which poses a major health risk to her. From this, I began to consider the main issues that my grandmother had when adhering to her medication, as well as the difficulty that I had administering her medication, so that I could consider adaptive features to add to my PillSmart device. Still, with my personal experience from my grandmother, I wanted to see how this project could potentially impact a larger demographic. So I considered this study from the National Institutes of Health, which compared different interventions when assisting seniors with their medication. And it concluded that among 14 seniors, there was a 66% adherence rate with general guidelines, which is the basic pharmacy instructions that comes on the prescriptions, compared to a 70% adherence rate with an automated telephone system, which would be a simple phone call to remind them to take their medication. And lastly, an 81% adherence rate with a video monitor being used. So this study further proves the significance of technology in adherence rates for seniors with dementia and how the many adaptive features that the PillSmart 2.0 has could increase adherence rates to the high 80s and low 90%. So you may be wondering, well, there's many pill boxes and pill administrating devices on the market. And while there are, many of them don't have adaptive features that are considered for seniors with dementia. So I considered the PillSmart to five other assistive devices or pillbox devices based on the following categories of pricing under $50, if there were reminder and alarm features, if there was a safety lock, displays of dates and times, if it dispensed multiple times a day, if there were dosage safeguards, if it was easy to use, and if there was an app included. And I found that none of them nearly had as many adaptive features as the PillSmart. Um, and also that only two of them were priced under $50. And according to the World Health Organization, over 60% of people with dementia live in low to middle income countries. So, for a device that barely even has enough adaptive features for a senior to be able to use easily, it just wouldn't be a reality for someone to have to spend $70 to $80 on these devices. So my initial PillSmart design was a push to open mechanism with a speaker that would remind a senior to take medication. But some of the main issues with this design was that it was difficult for a senior to use as it wasn't automatically dispensing. So I tested more prototype ideas and added features such as LCD screens, wall hooks, sensor tray, and an automatic dispensing mechanism. And this got me to my original PillSmart prototype. Simply, how this prototype would work is that there were 7 funnel chutes, which represented each day of the week, and medication would dispense onto the tray at a specific time a day. The issue with this was that you would have to refill the box once a week, and it would only dispense medication once a day. So for my updated PillSmart 2.0, I considered targeting polypharmacy, which is taking 5 or more medications, which is very common among seniors with dementia, so that I could create a device that dispensed multiple times a day. This is simply how the mechanism for the funnel chutes for the PillSmart 2.0 works. So for the bottom layer, it holds there's a hold that will hold the medication to dispense. Then in the middle, there is a flat circle with a hole for the medication to pass through, and it functions as the final layer from which the medication is dispensed. Then the top layer holds the medication before dropping down and also holds the rest of the components together, such as the stepper motor, which would rotate the mechanism. And lastly, there is a funnel which would hold all the medication. So since this device would have 1 funnel chute mechanism per medication, you would be able to put a whole prescription in at a time and not worry about having to fill it once a week. This gives a more descriptive analysis of my various PillSmart prototypes. So designs 1 to 3 were all in the idea phase, and design 4 is when I considered the various issues that I had with my previous prototypes to create an actual prototype, which I presented at my first science fair nationally. And then I considered targeting polypharmacy and also having an app included for a caregiver so that I could create the 5th design, which is the PillSmart 2.0. So this device automatically dispenses. There's speaker and reminder features. It's easy to use because a senior can just take the medication from the tray without any other need to push or have to open or close anything. And there's also an app included for a caregiver to check while they're maybe at work or on the go. So simply how the PillSmart 2.0 works is that when the clock module updates the time to the microcontroller, which is the Arduino Mega 2560, will tell the clock module the time. And at this time for the medication to dispense, the microcontroller will inform the stepper motors that are connected to the different medication chutes to dispense based on which medication is supposed to be dispensed at that time. Then once the medication hits the tray, there's an IR sensor, which will send the information back to the microcontroller and tell the speaker to play. The speaker can play a customized audio, so it could be a voice note from a caregiver to make it feel more personable and would help with the aggression that often comes with seniors with dementia taking their medication. It will also keep track of the time that the medication was dispensed for reference of when the next time for the medication to be dispensed is, and it will connect to the internet so that a notification can be sent to the caregiver app. And this way, it can notify the app when the medication has been dispensed. This just shows a demo of the caregiver app. So either a caregiver, which could be a family member, or a caregiver from a nursing home or another long-term care facility could use this, and they can have multiple patients on this. So simply how it works is once you sign in, you can go through your account settings, and then you can also use this feature called caregiver messages. So as the pill box has a LCD screen, it can show caregiver messages, which would just be personalized messages for a senior with dementia to see, so that as many seniors aren't very like don't use technology as much, especially with dementia, it would give them a way to kind of communicate. Then you can also see many alerts and notifications, which could either show that the medication from the tray has been taken or if the medication from the tray hasn't been taken, which would constantly send an alert in 2-minute intervals. And lastly, you can also view the patient's information, which would show the different medications they take and which times they take the medication. And it can take up to 3 different time slots for the medication to be taken, and will also remind you how many prescriptions and refills you have on your prescription. So for future improvements, I hope that I can expand the capacity of the PillSmart and what it does by adding more dispensers to each box to allow for more than 5 medication types, as currently it has 5 different medication types. Further, I would also like to make the device scaled for marketing, as it's currently in a demonstration prototype phase, so it's a bit bigger, but if it was marketed, I'd be able to give it a smaller profile. So in conclusion, uh, according to the Alzheimer's Society, 87% of caregivers wish that more people understood the realities of caring for someone with dementia. And being part of this 87%, I understand that although there is no cure for dementia, assistive devices such as the PillSmart could alleviate the stress that comes with caring for someone with dementia. And hopefully, the PillSmart can be another tool in the toolbox of assistive devices for seniors with dementia. Thank you so much for listening.
Absolutely wonderful, Joy. Thank you very much. Go ahead and stop sharing the screen. I'd like to introduce the group we've got, as we have 4 members of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley here today. That first one right there is me. I am in San Jose, California. Um, Also, on the west coast of the United States, or west-ish, is member Dave Andrew down in the Tucson area in Arizona. In Houston, Texas is Rory Olson, and in Eastern Italy is Cecilia Babkirk. Uh, Joy in Nova Scotia, thank you for your really cool presentation. So I've got a whole raft of questions ready for you. We got a team ready to go on this. And where I'd like to start actually is think this thing of how to help a senior dealing with memory issues. First of all, I get it. My mother has memory loss consistent with dementia, and some of the medications on the screen that you showed are medications she takes. So what assumptions about the patient do you make in order for PillSmart 2.0 to be effective? I mean, clearly there's a wide range of capabilities of people, and so do you have kind of a sense that, this is really good for people in this set of circumstances, but not for this set of circumstances or anything like that?
Yes, so when I was building the original prototype, I was considering the issues that my grandmother has, and she's in the mild to moderate stage. So I targeted seniors with mild and moderate dementia for my project.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I mean, it seems that aspects of the PillSmart are really they carry a certain amount of assumptions about the patient. Although it also seems that the tracking of dispensed medication would be valuable to almost anybody in terms of really, because that's something that I face. I keep very careful notes on what my mother has had and not had and things like that. And still, there are times when I'm like, and it would be great to have something like this. Is that something that you've talked about with people as you developed your project?
Yes, so while the many times I've like presented my project, many times people will joke about I need something like this, and the more I heard it, the more I considered that this isn't only for someone with dementia, although it is targeted for them, and the adaptive features would especially alleviate that stress of non-medication adherence. I considered that this project could be or this device could be used for someone who has moderate dementia all the way to someone who might have poor memory and just has trouble remembering or has a busy schedule and they just can't keep up with their medications.
Absolutely. I think that that's very promising in that regard. Dave in Arizona has a question for you as well. So, Dave, go ahead and unmute and share your thought there. Let's get you unmuted there.
Unmute. This is my first time attending a recording, so I'm not I'm not real familiar with the process, but I'm learning. But I appreciate the presenter being here. Uh, I couldn't figure out how to write my note in the chat, so I'm just going to ask them. First of all, how did you? I know you got the idea from your grandmother. How did you learn the process of actually like inventing this?
Yes, so that's a great question. So when I started my project, all I really had was my inspiration and knowing and seeing the struggle that my grandmother has when taking her medication. But I had no idea how to code, which is a major part of my project. So I was supported by Imhotep's Legacy Academy in Halifax, and they help African students interested in pursuing STEM. They provided me with an amazing mentor. His name's Jeffrey Lynn, and they helped me with paying for materials, giving me lab space and equipment. And I used YouTube videos to learn basic coding. So the first thing I learned how to code was a 16 by 2 LCD screen, just programming simple messages. And then from there, I went to coding a bigger LCD screen, programming the speaker, and slowly developing the modules and the stepper motor that I used, slowly developing that to create my project.
Oh, that's amazing. Maybe a couple follow-ups. Did you apply for a patent?
Not yet. So that's my next step, is to apply for a patent. So I'm kind of looking for, ways that I can apply for a patent and also like the cost of a patent. And that's kind of what I've been looking into now.
Okay. Um, so is the PillSmart 2.0, is it designed, could the person use it unassisted, or does it really require a caregiver to sort of monitor and oversee the use of it?
Yes, so the PillSmart 2.0 is mainly so that a senior can use it on their own without a caregiver being there. I added the caregiver app as a way for a caregiver to track the device when a senior is unassisted, so that they can make sure that the medication isn't taken or is taken, and make sure that if it isn't taken, they can make sure that it does eventually get taken. Because my experience with my grandmother is sometimes when I give her medication, she won't want to take it. Or
Right.
sometimes she'll act like she's taking it and I'll go upstairs and she'll spit it out. So it also, yeah, and it also depends on who's giving it to her. So in Nigeria, it's really important to respect your elders, of course. So sometimes when I give my grandmother medication, I don't want it to seem like I'm bossing her around. So she might not listen to me as easily, and she might get a little aggravated if I'm telling her to take her medication. So I would have to like call my mom or even call my aunt sometimes to help her tell her to take her medication. So that's why I added the speaker feature as well, so that you can play like a customized audio from a loved one to make it feel more personal, and so that when a senior's with the device unassisted, it still feels like there's kind of someone there, or it's not just a device that's programmed telling you to take your medication.
Yeah. It. it reminds me of the phrase, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink." So
Yes.
yeah. I've had some experience with this, and so yeah, it's a great idea, but and it depends on the individual's capacity or and willingness to use it unassisted. But I can see where it's going to be valuable to have a person sort of oversee. But thank you so much. It's a wonderful idea, and I appreciate you presenting to us. That's all I got,
Yes.
Rustin.
All right. So fantastic ideas there, Dave. Thank you. When we look at the kinds of pills that are a part of the device, so my mother, for example, takes a potassium pill, which is kind of this really large pill. Is there part of how you have built the device that takes into account the ranging sizes of pills that are part of it? I mean, that seemed to be part of how you built that second tier piece.
Yes. So one of the main issues that I had when designing my second prototype was that although I wanted to make it so that each funnel shoot would be for a different medication instead of just a different day, it would have to account for the different sizes of medication. So I created these like funnel kind of toppers that you could put on the second layer. And if I was to ever commercialize the product, there would be different sets of these funnels that can be put in and customized for the different medications and easily taken out and easily put back in.
Really nice. So you talked in the presentation about how you had looked at the different kinds of tools that are on the market for the same kind, and that kind of comparative research, I think, is a hallmark of really good work to develop, a tool of any kind. But I think you characterized it as saying, I found that they didn't have these adaptive features, and that got me wondering, to what extent did you build it based on your experience with your grandmother, and then look at what else was out there? Or you looked at what else was out there, found a set of things, thought I can bring all of these together and a couple of other things I need to make it happen. Do you see where I'm asking kind of a chicken and egg question there?
Yes. When I started my project, I initially considered my grandmother, and then, of course, to check that there wasn't already something like this on the market, I looked at the pill boxes and pill dispensing devices, and I found kind of like things when I was considering my grandmother. I was like, well, my grandmother wouldn't be able to use this because she would have to know what day it is. My grandmother wouldn't be able to use this because she would store it away and she wouldn't find it, which is one of the main issues we had. And it's also why I made it a larger profile and also had wall hooks that it could be hung in like a living room or kitchen so that the device wouldn't get stored away or anything like that. So I'd say it was a bit of a mix. I thought of some of the features that I wanted to implement with experiences with my grandmother. But as I continued to add to my project and continued to improve my prototype, I looked on the web and I searched for the different features that these other devices had and considered what they were missing and what I could add then to my project.
Nice. One more technical question about the tool, and then we'll shift to some more general items. If there is a medication that is not a pill, so for example, let's say that your grandmother needs to take a puff from an inhaler once a day. Is there something built into the app that would allow a caregiver to say, took inhaler or something like this, just so that there'd be a manual tracking or comments specific to days or anything along those lines?
So that's a great question. There is like the medication information section, which you could manually add the type of medication that there is. Though I've never gone as far as to really consider medications that aren't pills, which would be a great future improvement if there was like an inhaler or a different type of medication that isn't a pill, how that could be tracked. So that's actually would be one of my future improvements. Yeah.
Nice. It Shifting gears a bit, it sounds like you got some really good mentoring, and you mentioned an organization. And could you tell us a little bit more about that organization in Halifax?
Yes, so Emotep's Legacy Academy, they are affiliated with Dalhousie University, and they introduce African students interested in STEM to various pursuits in STEM with STEM competitions and fairs that they hold yearly. For Science Literacy Week, they also hold the science fair, the Young Gifted and Black Science Fair, which is how I started my science fair journey a few years ago. They have tutoring and they also have coding. So my mentor, who also taught me coding, part of learning how to code was through their like coding programs, C++, HTML, and Python, so on. They also have after school programs where they hold different experiments. And one thing that I really love about like Imhotep is that they focus on the contributions to that Black people had made to STEM, so that we can see ourselves in those positions, and we can see role models who have made contributions to STEM who look like us, because we don't always learn about that in school. So it's good to be able to learn about it somewhere. And they also just they've given me so much support through my science fair experience. I feel like it became my second home at the time while I was creating my prototype, because I'd be there from, like for hours on hours every week. My first science fair, the week before, the night before I left for my science fair, I was there until 1 a.m. and my mentor was there with me, and my mom was there, and we were all like just working. Like I was just working on the project, and I was like basically almost falling asleep because it was 1 a.m. But I mean, without fail, we got the project done. But just hours on end, I was given so much support.
I love that. So that support led you to do some things that I think are critical for any entrepreneur, any innovator, and I'd love for you to kind of comment on this to whatever extent it fits. There is having an idea, right? There's having the confidence that anybody will listen to you about your idea. There is developing the idea. There is having the encouragement to overcome the inevitable challenges that rise figuring out the complications related to your idea. And then there is telling the story of your work, right? And I love that in your presentation, all of these things come through, and that and in telling the story to us, you're really showing that you've developed a broad understanding of a lot of the issues that you can speak to so eloquently, and kudos for that.
Thank you.
Is that also a part of the mentoring where they talk to you about the relationship between telling the story of your work and its improvement?
Yes, that is definitely one of the major parts of the mentoring. Is when I started my project, although I knew that it was something that could impact my own home and I did research into it, going to the science fair being my first time, I was still intimidated by all these amazing projects from other, amazing young scientists who are just doing amazing things. And my mentor would always tell me, you know your project better than anyone else. And it's not something that can just be researched and done. It's something that, you have experience with, and no one else would be able to say that project better than you do, because you've worked on it and you spent hours, like you were in the lab until late at night working on it, and you considered the issues that my grandmother had and everything like that. So that was one of the biggest things, was giving me that confidence that this is a project that I made considering my personal experience. So it's a story that I can tell best for myself.
Well, that mentor is absolutely a hero. I love how you tell that story. What I'm going to do, speaking of telling stories, is wind down our recording and then hand it back to you for the final word. But for all of you who have taken a half hour of your time, or faster if you sped up the play, um, Thank you so much for being part of it. We love sharing these stories. We love finding these stories. We love working with the speakers to get them recorded. We love getting them out on our YouTube channel and on our podcast channels. We love sharing inspiration, and we hope that you find that energizing as well. If you are interested in learning more about Rotary, you can at Rotary, Rotary.org. If you want to find out more about our club, you can go to rotary.cool. And that's one way to connect with our club. SiliconValleyRotary.com is the site that works for us as well. So by all means, take a look at what we have on our site. Take a look at what Rotary offers. And if you have always thought, I want to devote more of my time and energy to making the world a better place, there are lots of great service organizations out there, and Rotary is a particularly good one. We hope that you'll give that some thought. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. So, Joy, as people finish up this recording, what would you like them to have clearly in mind?
Going through my science fair project, if there's one thing that I've learned, it's that any amazing project starts with an idea. It starts with the seed, whether you don't know where that's going to take you or whether you don't have experience in the field that you're venturing to with your project. It has to start with that idea. And if you're confident in your project and you consider how it's going to impact the world and you're passionate about it, then it can really do amazing things. And that's what I've learned from my project.
Fantastic. Joy, you've learned well, and we are all better for it. Everyone, thank you. We'll see you next week.